Welcome into Rob Wright's Next Pop Culture. Find out about a 70s singer-songwriter that we lost way too soon. Who is it? Find out next. Once again, welcome into Rob Wright's Next Pop Culture. Hey, want to give a quick plug. YouTube has changed their algorithm, and really they're asking for likes and comments. So if you could please like this stream, or actually like this video, and leave comments, that helps with the YouTube algorithm. Also, please check out my other videos and live streams. I live stream every Sunday around 5:30 Central Time, USA. And usually we have different conversations about, as you saw in the video, right quick, World War II, Westerns, music, and then we talk about modern pop culture. So check out my videos, check out my streams. I got a lot of great stuff out there for you. So check those out. There'll be links below as well. Let's get into this and talk about a 70s icon that we lost too soon. And I don't know the thumbnail gave it away, but we're talking about the great Jim Croce. Now, Jim Croce may have been forgotten. He only had a few hits compared to a couple of other 70s artists who lasted throughout the decade. But he had some real soulful songs. And I really want to talk about him because I thought that he really embodied the modern folk pop movement that we saw in the 70s, which led to what we know as classic rock today. So we're going to talk a little bit in this show about his life, tell you about his background, how he got his start in music, how he came out with his new albums, and of course, the tragedy of his death. So let's get started. Let's talk about him. He was born January 10th, 1942 or 1943. It's not confirmed the year, which is kind of odd. Different publications say 42, different publications say 43. I don't know which one's true or not, but one of them is true. So he's born in the 40s. He was born in west of Pennsylvania. He graduated from Upper Darby High School in Pennsylvania in 1960, which leads me to probably 1942 rather than 43. And then he went to Villanova University. And here I've got a shot of both those schools right quick. Yeah, Villanova University is on the right and Upper Darby High School is on the left. So really kind of interesting. At Villanova, he was a member of the campus singing group that was the Villanova Singers. And then off campus, they were called the Coventry Lads because they couldn't use the Villanova name. He became the leader of that group. And they formed a band and they performed at frat parties and coffee houses. So that's how he kind of got his start in music. The band was actually chosen to tour Africa, the Middle East, and Yugoslavia. Now, that's interesting. Can you imagine going to all those places as a kid in the 60s? I can't imagine what he saw in the Middle East, Africa, and even Yugoslavia. I mean, my goodness, that's fascinating. And the Middle East still had some tension back then too. He met his wife at a hootenanny. He was judging. Now, hootenanny is kind of a slang term. It's like a music festival, and he was one of the judges, which is really cool. His wife is named Ingrid Jacobson, and he also was a disc jockey at the school radio station, which is something I can relate to because I was a disc jockey at my college radio station. So we have one thing in common. That's great. That's fantastic. He actually did graduate from Villanova with a BA in social studies, which is really cool. He and Ingrid got married in 1966, and she actually was of the Jewish faith. He was of the Catholic faith, and he actually converted to Judaism, and they got married in a traditional Jewish way. his parents actually gave him $500 in cash, which was a lot of money for that time. But guess what? It was for a different purpose. Uh, he used the money to make his first album called Faucet. And basically, they gave him the money on condition that he would use it to fund that album. And here's what his parents thought. Parents thought he would fail, abandon music, and choose a different career using his college degree. Hey, guess what? Not too different from parents today when they give their kids money on fruitless stuff, thinking that they'll learn their lesson. It was there alive back in the 60s as well. Anyway, let's see this picture of the happy couple. And here is a picture of his first album here, Faucets. It's interesting to see him without a mustache. He's so iconic with that mustache. But anyway, he produced 500 copies and they all sold. They're actually very rare. And this is kind of a copy of what it looked like right here. And they're very valuable if sold at auction. I don't know what the last one sold for, but if you can find a copy, wow, it's worth a lot. Anyway, he made $2,500 off the record sales. There was a re-release in 2004, which included 7 new songs from a failed demo tape that the Croces, created for a children's television show. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so let's get into the next phase of his life. So, he and his wife performed together, but also he had to do some other things to make money. And one of those was going into the National Guard. Yes, Jim Croce served in our military. Thank you, Jim Croce, for your service. Part of it was so that if he got in and enlisted early, he reduced the risk of being drafted to go to Vietnam. He served about 4 months in the National Guard. He went through basic training twice, which is odd, probably not uncommon, but kind of odd. Apparently, he didn't take too much to discipline and rules and regulations. He was kind of a free spirit, so that's probably part of it. The happy couple did perform as the Croces. They sang all different kinds of covers of folk, like Joan Baez, Woody Guthrie, and even the great Gordon Lightfoot, who was starting up as this up-and-coming singer at the time, who had several hits on the radio. So we go on to have several hits on the radio at the same time Jim would. So pretty cool. They also were writing some of their own songs. Croce landed a regular gig at a steakhouse in Lima, Pennsylvania, Riddle Puttock. The Croce set list covered several genres. His set list covered several genres: blues, country, rock and roll, and folk. And you can tell from his music the influences of all of those types, because a lot of his music does have its roots in blues, country, rock and roll, and folk. 1968, they were encouraged to go to New York City. So he and his wife moved to New York City. New York City. Yes, New York City, where you can make it or not. Anyway, they had a friend named Tommy West, who went to school with Jim at Villanova, and they introduced him to Terry Cashman, who helped produce their first album together, the Croces. They drove more than 300,000 miles playing at colleges, coffee houses, and circuits, and collecting guitars. So they collected a ton of guitars, apparently, trying to sell this album. It was interesting. However, they got very sick of New York City. They were from Philadelphia. They didn't really like the town as much. So they decided to cut their losses, sell their guitars, except for one, and move back to Pennsylvania. They settled in an old farm in Lindell, and he played for $25 a night in Lindell. In order to earn additional money, he did odd jobs. He drove trucks, worked construction. He taught guitar, and then he would write songs about some of these things. So he wrote about some of the characters who he met at some of the local bars and the truck stops. This led to a couple of songs on his albums, Big Wheel and Working the Car Wash Blues. So very interesting aspect about him and his life. And here's their first album right here. And there is a picture of their farmhouse. kind of cool. Pretty sweet, album cover. And you can see it's interesting to see these early pictures of Jim Croce, and he's got, the first instance of that mustache, and it's fairly clean, not as raggedy as we'll see later on in his other albums. But what a neat little farmhouse too, really quaint, very nice. Wow, kind of gives you that peaceful feeling. Um, so let's get into this. Back to Philly and time to get serious. So they moved to Philadelphia, and it was time to get serious about his music. It was either make it or break it at this point. Completely give it up and do something else, or make it in music. And he was determined to do that. So he worked some more odd jobs. He worked in construction. He worked as a welder, and in an interview, he joked about being a welder, saying he'd rather not get burned. So obviously, he not a fun job if you're working with fire all the time and you get an opportunity to burn yourself. That's never fun. But guess what? He landed a job at a radio station, which fit his disc jockey theme. So what he did was he sold air at radio station WHAT in Philadelphia. Basically, what he would do is he would sell commercials to like local taverns, and then he would write the promos for them or write the spot for them. So he would write and sing the spot. So back then on the radio, you get the advertising dollars, and then you create kind of the spot, and you create it like on a cart that they play. It's kind of like an 8-track that you pop in for different commercials. And so what he did was he recorded some of those using his talents with music, and that's a good blend of his talents working in the college radio station, and also using his music to create some of these spots, which is pretty cool. His fortune kind of changed in 1970 when he met Maury Muehleisen through a producer, Joel Savlow. Now, Marty was a good influence on him. Marty was a classically trained singer-songwriter, and he got them together, and they started working together and kind of formed a band. And at first, Croce was supporting Muehleisen, but their roles got reversed because Muehleisen really took a back seat to Jim Croce's voice and his songwriting. So they worked together, and he became the lead guitarist and worked with him, which is great because their albums just are amazing right after this. And then Croce's son, Adrian James, otherwise known as AJ, was born in September 1971, while Croce toured to promote his music. Ingrid stayed home. So there's some pictures of AJ right there. What a happy family. What a lot of cute pictures right there, baby and a young kiddo. And then there's the interior of a radio station. And there, of course, is Maury Muehleisen, who is an excellent guitarist. If you listen to Jim Croce's music, you can hear both of the guitars, and Muehleisen's parts are extravagant as well. So, brilliant musician. My goodness, these guys were dynamite, and we're getting ready to talk about that. So they had a new record deal and albums. So we're going to talk about the first 2 albums that he came out with and some of their singles. Let me show you the covers. So you had You Don't Mess Around with Jim, which was also a title song, and the album, and Life and Times were the 2 first albums that they made. They had signed a 3-record contract with ABC Records. So You Don't Mess Around with Jim was the first album. It spent 93 weeks on the charts. Can you believe that? That's pretty awesome. For 1971, it was on there all the way through, 73, 74. It was on there longer than any other Croce album. Don't Mess Around with Jim was their first single. It's been 11 weeks on Billboard Hot 100 and peaked at number 8. So here's a picture of some of the singles. So You Don't Mess Around with Jim was basically a song when he would play in all the pool halls that we talked about, the different local pubs and local places. So it was about a guy that was just awesome at pool, and a big guy that everybody respected, and how he gets his butt kicked by a guy he hustled. You have to listen to that song. Anyway, so That's a great song. It was his first hit. The next hit song off of that album was Operator. That's Not the Way It Feels. Probably my favorite of the Jim Croce songs, especially with the guitar work on that. It's so beautiful. Basically, that was inspired by his stint in the military. Uh, he basically, soldiers would line up at the local phone booth because telephones weren't always in every dorm or every place room, and you'd have to use the phone booth. And basically, he saw that they would wait to use outdoor phones, many of them calling their wives or girlfriends to see if their Dear John letter was true. And a Dear John letter was, "Hey, I'm leaving you for somebody else." And so that song is about kind of a Dear John letter and a phone call, um, trying to find out if it was true. Um, that's not the way it feels. Pretty sad. It spent 12 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100 and it only peaked at number 17. Honestly, I felt that this song should have gone a lot higher on the Billboard charts because I think it's one of his best songs. Uh, Croce wrote the third one was "Time in the Bottle," and "Time in the Bottle." Croce wrote the lyrics after his wife Ingrid told him she was pregnant in December of 1970. The arrangement features a harpsichord that producer Tommy West discovered had been left in the mixing studio. It was a number one song for Jim Croce, and I've got a little bit more on it later. It was released later on than the other two. The other two were released right away, and then this one was later on. Uh, as we told you, that the album was still charting for 93 weeks. That's impressive. Life and Times was the next album, and it had the number one Billboard song "Bad Bad" Leroy Brown. You probably already know this one. Uh, he was also nominated with two 1973 Grammy Awards, uh, Pop Male Vocalist of the Year and Record of the Year categories for the song "Bad Bad" Leroy Brown. It would be the last album to be released in his lifetime. Other singles were "One Less of Footsteps" and "It Doesn't Have to Be That Way." So two other good songs on that album. So making the rounds with these two albums, he moved out to San Diego because he was on television a lot and had to make the rounds. He was on different shows, and I'll show you some pictures of that. He was on American Bandstand. Uh, he was on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and he was on the Dick Cavett Show, which is interesting because Dick Cavett was more of an intellectual. I know that musicians appeared on there, but I didn't know if they played. So very interesting choices of show. Croce began touring the United States with Muehleisen performing in large coffee houses, college campuses, and at folk festivals. Um, his financial situation still wasn't all that great because back then you had to have several hit albums in a row and your music had to hit the charts in order for you to make a lot of money and be able to do either what you wanted creating in the music industry or retire or go off on your own. So he had a record company fronted him the money to make the records, and much of the earnings went to repay in advance. Croce and Muehleisen traveled Europe. They performed in London, Paris, Amsterdam, Monte Carlo, Zurich, and Dublin. And they got rave reviews. People loved it. He also made other television appearances. He went to the Midnight Special, which he co-hosted on G15, and that's a great video. Go watch that on YouTube if you get a chance. Their version of Operator is so beautiful on that. They went on the Helen Reddy Show, where Bad Bad Leroy Brown reached number one that year in July. And from July 16th through August 4th, Croce and Muehleisen returned to London and performed the Old Grey Whistle Test, which is one of the premier places to perform and to be recorded and to also get video out. There's several artists that went there. And they sang Lover's Cross and Working at the Car Wash for their upcoming album, I Got a Name. He finished recording the album just a few weeks before tragedy happened. So let's get into a little bit about this. Basically, they wanted to take a break, and he took a break to settle in with Ingrid and AJ when Life and Times tour ended. He was planning on taking a big break, and he sent a letter to his wife saying that, hey, he really wanted to quit the music business. It was too much of a grind, and he wanted to write short stories and movie scripts and withdraw from public life. Then tragedy occurred, and oh my goodness, what a tragedy! So September 20th, 1973, during the Jim Croce's Lifetimes tour, which had been scheduled for 45 dates, and the day before his single "I Got a Name" was released, Croce and 5 others were killed when their chartered plane crashed shortly after takeoff at the Nacogdoches Regional Airport in Louisiana. Others killed in the crash were the pilot Robert N. Elliott, Maury Muehleisen, unfortunately, manager and booking agent Kenneth D. Cortese, road manager Dennis Rast, and George Stevens, a comedian. The crash occurred an hour after Croce had finished a concert at Northwestern State University. He was on his way to Sherman, Texas, to play a concert for Austin College. Just tragedy, and you see some of the footage here. I didn't want to put any more of it because it's just awful. And you see a picture of him on the plane, and then here's the newspaper right there, Shreveport Journal. The investigation of the crash identified the cause was the pilot's failure to see obstructions because of his physical impairment and fog. The 57-year-old pilot suffered from severe coronary artery disease and had to run 3 miles to the airport from a motel. He had an ATP certificate and the flight time and everything. He was qualified, but he just wasn't in good shape. And that's really sad because, man, the plane crashes that have killed other artists. Remember, we already had by this time lost Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and the great Ritchie Valens in a plane crash in 1959. Now we lose Jim Croce, who is a promising upcoming artist with several great songs. Croce was buried at Haym Salomon Memorial Park in Fraser, Pennsylvania. So after his death, the album "I Got a Name" was released. It included 3 hits: "Working at the Car Wash," which we had already mentioned. "I'll Have to Say I Love You" in a Song, which, oh my goodness, if you think about that being released after the crash, just kind of hits you right here in the ticker. And the title song, "I Got a Name," which was the theme of the film The Last American Hero. "I'll Have to Say I Love You" in a Song reached number 9 on the singles charts. This gets to "Time in a Bottle" because "Time in a Bottle" at this time, after he passed away, had not been released as a single. But, you had a lot of people that were requesting that song because of his passing. And ABC decided to eventually release it as a single, and it became a number 1 hit and its final number 1. After the single finished its 2-week run at the top in early January 1974, the album "You Don't Mess Around with Jim" became number 1 for 5 weeks, 7 weeks after its release. "I Got a Name" reached number 2 behind "You Don't Mess Around with Jim." So he had the number 1 and the number 2 selling albums right at the same time. That's pretty impressive. Sad that he passed away and didn't get to live to see it, but wow. I mean, just think about that. You had the number 1 and number 2 albums. I mean, my goodness. That tells you what a great artist he was and how great his songs were. A greatest hits album titled "Photographs and Memories" was released in 74. And then you have a couple of home recordings with other hits. "Down the Highway," "Have You Heard," the Jim Croce live DVD and CD were released in 1990. And he was elected in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. There are a couple of tributes that are interesting. The band Queen in 1974, their album "Sheer Heart Attack" included the song "Bringing Back That Leroy Brown," which was a reference to Croce's Bad Leroy Brown. In 2012, Ingrid Croce published a memoir called "I Got a Name: The Jim Croce Story." She also opened a restaurant and bar, project she had jokingly discussed with Croce in the historic Gaslamp Quarter, downtown San Diego. So, yeah, this is "Sheer Heart Attack." This is "I Got a Name." uh, the memoir and then the album. And then here's a marker. There's also a marker, a historical marker where their farm was. And here on his gravesite, it says 1943. So I guess it's 1943, but there are some records out there that say 1942. I don't know which is which. But she'd opened a couple of restaurants to honor him, and his son is a musician and sings several of his songs. And uh, it's great to hear his son sing some of his songs. And they have a YouTube site that I'll link below that keeps his legacy alive. So great stuff. But anyway, that is the life of Jim Croce. What is your favorite Jim Croce song? Did you know about Jim Croce? Uh, Tell me what you like in the comments. My personal favorite song, you know, I love Operator. It's probably my favorite. Time in a Bottle is a close second. But I love so many of his hits. He's got such a range. If you listen to his stuff, it has, soft, soulful ballads. He's got some upbeat blues. He's got country picking songs that are just fantastic guitar work. It's just great. A little bit of folk in there too. They're very down home. They're very much about real people, and they're catchy. So if you get a chance, I'll listen to some of his music. Tell me more in the comments below. Tell me what you like about Jim Croce. Tell me what your favorite song of yours is. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please leave some comments so that YouTube will share this video out. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please check out my other videos. I'll have a link coming up right after this outro, and we'll see you on the next one.